Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters, and today we're going to start building the new from Academy, the M4A376 Wet. This is a brand new kit from Academy. It will be out in a couple of weeks actually in the United States. Academy was kind enough to send me an early copy to build for and show you guys. So let's get started on it. Okay, we're going to start building the bogey wheels up here, and after looking over the instructions, this looks to be fairly easy and straightforward. Not a lot of parts in this entire kit. In fact, many of you may have just got done watching the build the King Tiger with the full interior, which that was a lot of parts, and it'll be nice and refreshing to do something like this that'll go together real simply and not have a lot of parts to put together. So something we can knock out pretty quickly and then get right to the weathering and painting of it. As I mentioned in the intro of the video, that this is a new release from Academy. It is mostly made up of previous release sprues though. Very nice, should go together really well, but I just wanted to make it note that this is a conglomeration of some of their older kits put together. As we start to put the bogey wheels on, you'll see that I've sanded out the middle where there was two rather large and push pin marks on it. And although that looks kind of beat up, it's the way that this plastic reacts to sanding. It's actually very smooth right there, and it just, when you get it wet, it goes away. So the paint will have no problem covering that. You might notice that as we build this model that a lot of the pieces appear to be, you know, roughly sanded and not very smooth, but like I said, it's very smooth after you're done. It's just the way the plastic reacts. And these easily go right into place. And we got that whole side right there, and now we'll work on the other side. Okay, I've gone ahead and applied some of the ventilation system on the back here, and at this point I'm going to go ahead and attach the top and bottom together. Now it doesn't call for this to closer to the end, but because of these parts right here are a little loose, we want to make sure they attach straight to the back of the hull. So we've gone ahead and put our periscopes in and things like that. So now we're going to just fit this in and making sure that those back pieces, see, they have to fit around in the back piece there. So we like the way that fits right now, so we'll go ahead and put some glue inside there and glue the whole body together. Okay, I wanted to show you guys what I've done. I started attaching all of the little brackets and lights and tow hooks and all the other kind of stuff that goes on there. And I started to do the front on it, and I was digging through my parts box to get another part out, and I found this sandbag front that actually fit really well. So what I did is I went ahead and attached it. I actually made 2 extra sandbags to kind of fill in the top to kind of blend it all together with it. And this sandbag kit came from Value Gear. ValueGearDetails.com. It's Steve owns the company. He's a really great guy and he does really great work, and he's doing a lot of extra other stuff for Sherman's. So what I did is I attached it with a little super glue. It already had the wooden plank that's built into it. So I think it's going to look really good. Now what I did overall is I sprayed the entire model with NATO Black. The plastic on this, because of the type of color it was, when you sanded it, and like I showed you earlier with those rough spots, looked really rough. And there were so many areas that I wanted to just make sure that I had a good coat on. So this is kind of like a primer for me right now. And as you can see, all that stuff just blended away. I'm also have another piece here from Value Gear that will put some stowage on the back, something like that. So this will look like a really decked out Sherman all ready to go. It was amazing. This piece fit really, really well on there. I only had to do a tiny little bit of fill on one side with a little bit of the putty that I made the sandbags out of. So that's what it's going to look like right there. So I've got a few other parts that we got to put on, and then we can start working on the turret. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about is the tracks before we go any further. The tracks that they are included with the kit are rubber band type, and they actually have the duck bills in place as well. The thing that I want to talk to you about on this is these are not made out of plastic. These are actually the vinyl type tracks, and they have the little pins that slide inside there that use the hot screwdriver to secure them. The problem I was running into if you just try to use that only is that the tracks are very, very tight, and they look good once they're on there. The problem is they're so tight that they want to rip the track apart. So the only way that I could get it to stay was to use a staple gun and just put like 2 staples into the middle, and you tuck that up inside in here. You'll never see it again after that, but that makes it nice and secure so they won't ever break apart on you. But because they're also tight, the other thing you want to do is I want to tell you is put a little extra super glue on the back of the return roller right here. And what that'll do is, because you don't want that to start to bend and flex and give way on it because the tracks are a little bit tight. If you put a little super glue on that and the staples, you'll get it looking really well, and they'll look really good on the side. As I start to assemble this little grab handle, one thing I want to compliment Academy on this kit is that they give you lots of grab handles and other little parts that you sometimes have a tendency to lose. So, for example, these periscope guards, these are all the extra ones, and inevitably I end up breaking one or losing it in the carpet, things like that. Also with all the grab handles, these are all the extra grab handles that are actually on there. So that's a nice little feature that I wish more and more companies would start putting on, is by giving just a couple extra ones just in case you do break or lose one. And speaking of grab handles, this is just a quick little thing I'll show you guys. I don't know if any of you guys know this. By taking the tweezers and wrapping your grab handle inside of it, you can knock that little edge off the top by sanding just like that, and you can take that down without breaking them. And that's one of the reasons I broke so many before I started doing that, is because without holding it, you end up snapping them in half, and that way you can get the top of that completely off. Sorry about that. There we go. As we start to build the machine gun, I wanted to show you the actual machine gun barrel is actually slide molded multiple directions, and as you can see, it's hollow all the way through, so it's a nice little feature. And these are all new parts, so we'll go ahead and build the machine gun and put it on top. Well, here we are. We've gone ahead and completed the construction on the kit. I have to say, after building that King Tiger kit not too long ago with the lots and lots of parts to it, this kit was nice and refreshing. It was real easy to put together. This represented maybe about maybe about 6-7 hours worth of actual build time. Was not very difficult at all. Like I said, we did add the aftermarket sandbags on, which I think will look good once we paint all those up. Fit was really good. It is, like I said, made up of some older kits put together, but the fit was tight everywhere. We didn't have any fit problems on it, and like I said, it was just nice to build something that would be quick and easy that we can go ahead and start painting right away. The barrel is a 2-piece barrel. That's right down the middle. Fit real well, and with a little liquid glue, letting it dry, and then wet sanding it with that foam board worked really well. Can't even see the seam on it at all. So overall, it's a nice looking kit. Best part of all is I get to start painting and weathering right away. So let's get started on that. The next step what we're going to do is we're going to use the black and white technique to kind of highlight some of the edges of this vehicle. We're not going to do as a dark as an olive drab as sometimes as some of the other ones. I want to do a little bit lighter version of it, and this will help the tone show up a little better. And there's the final effect we wanted to go with for the black and white technique. Made it real stark white up on all these top edges, and then gradually faded down. So once we put the lighter olive drab on it, you'll really start to see a noticeable difference between the top and bottom portions of it. It actually looks pretty good as a whitewash too. Almost, I haven't done a Sherman with a whitewash camouflage before. Maybe this might be the one to start working on with. I've gone ahead and mixed up a batch of XF62, the olive drab, with about 20% XF60 to lighten it down. And we're going to go ahead and put that on there lightly and see how we like the lightened olive drab. That's our paint is now dried. I also airbrushed the front of the sandbags with XF49 khaki and went over and through there, so they look kind of like that. Now this is just the base coat for all this. I also removed the tracks because we're going to weather those separately. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray the entire model with just a lusterless flat from Model Master, just to seal in all the paint on that, and then we can go on to either doing a little more weathering and putting the track. We've gone ahead and sprayed it with the dull coat now. You can see the effect. It's supposed to be dull, but it has just an ever so slight sheen, like a real tank would have. And this will be a good time to start working on the tracks. Okay, we're going to begin the weathering of the tracks, and we're going to use Vallejo's Model Wash Desert Dust as the fixing agent. And then we're going to use a mixture of primarily light sienna and a little bit of dark yellow ochre. Combined the two of these are the pigments that we're going to use. So I'm going to get these open and ready to go. I'm just using an old brush. We're going to start applying the Model Wash. Making sure we get it all over all that stuff, and then just dipping the same brush right inside the light sienna to start, and just start building it up. Now I should also point out too, I almost forgot about this, before I put the tracks back on, I went ahead and painted them just flat black, and then went over it with a dull coat to seal in that paint job so we don't have any problems with this stuff sticking really well. Now I'm just going to do a small little portion of this right here just to show you. And then we'll add we'll just add a little bit of that yellow color. And kind of blend the two of them together. And this can be done any kind of different tones, darker or lighter, depending on how you feel you want to do it. And because these are rubber tracks, just take a little paper towel and kind of clean off the rubber portion of the track. I'm kind of using this to speed it up a little bit, just because normally I'd wait for it to dry a little bit, but you can start to see the mud start to form, and that's going to dry a little bit flatter in there too. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up all of the tracks doing that same process, and we'll go and clean up a little bit around it. Now that we've let that dry for a little while, I was telling you earlier how we can go over it, either a paper towel, or I happen to have some cotton swabs right here. You can just start to highlight the fronts of the rubber pads. You don't want to take it completely off, because you do want to show some amount of discoloration in it, but to the point where most of it would have rubbed off on it. So we've gone ahead and done the entire set of tracks all the way around, and then we'll start working our way up with the weathering. While we're letting the tracks dry, I'm taking a khaki wash that's a little bit darker than the tracks, or excuse me, the sandbags themselves. We're going over and trying to fill in as much as we can with all the cracks. So as this dries, you'll start to see some more shadow effect going on in the sandbags. And we'll probably even go over it with even a little bit darker color, seeing how this dries. I just didn't want to go too crazy with it. Now, it looks that way because it's wet right now, but once this all dries off right here, it'll blend a lot better together. So I'll finish that up and let that dry, and then we'll start working on some more. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've put a couple of wet coats into all the cracks of the sandbags of some browns and some different, and a little bit of a dark gray wash. And this is what it looks like right here, wet. And now you'll see what it actually looks like once it's dried, and how it really starts to pick out all the detail of the sandbags. You'll also notice that this is finally drying. And what I've done on this area is we've taken our brown wash and just in certain little tight areas, just touching it to kind of break up the solidness of the pigments that we had on there. Kind of gives it a nice effect, and we'll go down the entire line down here as well. While we have the wash out, we're going to start going over the vehicle with a dark wash, starting off with these vent panels back here that look kind of plain if we don't highlight them a little bit. Okay, now that we've done the tracks, we want to start going over the lower parts of the vehicle, front, back, and inside here, and giving it a same dirty, muddy effect, dried mud effect that we did on the tracks. So we're going to be using, once again, our desert dust. We're going to use that as a fixer. We're going to start going over inside in here. Just blotting it on. And then using the light sienna and a little bit, just a little bit of the dark yellow ochre mixed together to start blending in. And just start packing it in there, blotting it. You don't want to go too heavy, but you want to show that there's a lot of dirt and buildup inside there. And then we'll gradually work it forward, start working on the bogey wheels, and then lightly go over some of these areas in here. And the colors of pigments can be anything you want. I just want to keep my whole palette the same here, because what we did with the tracks, and then we want to keep the same colors all together. And because we want to have a little bit more grime in this area, we're going to take our black wash, and while this is actually still wet, just kind of touch it in some little areas. And you watch how it just kind of fills in a lot of the areas. And you've got your little oil and or grease stains and grime. So just so it's not all dirt, you want to show that there's some grease and oil stuff mixed into it. So we are going to let that dry, and then I will show you what it looks like once it dries. And so that everything doesn't look completely dry, we're using a little bit of the mud and grass effect, and we're just putting a little bit on the lower part of the hull behind the road wheels, where a little thicker mud would have accumulated, and you see a little bit of grass. And I've gone most down the entire line, but you'll start to get layering of the dirt, the lighter, darker as it goes down. Just kind of blot it around in there, and we'll let that dry, and then go over it one more time with a wash. I'm going to give the model a coating of dust, and we're going to use XS57 Buff from Tamiya, thinned down a little bit more than normal, and then from about a foot and a half away, we're going to lightly mist over the entire model. Now we're going to use Vallejo's Rain Effects. This product is pretty thick coming out of the bottle, so you're going to want to put a little bit on and then immediately have a damp brush to make it flow into all the little areas, and it'll make a nice dust effect. Okay, this is our completed model. I want to show you guys a few things that I went and finished up with. Went did a little bit more of the buff coat and kind of put a little extra dust in some of the areas to help blend together the Vallejo pigments, or excuse me, the rain effects. We used some of Vallejo's fuel stains up on the fuel filler caps. Also completed the dirt and mud effect on the back. That was, we had forgot to do that in the initial part when we were doing the sides. Overall, it's a very simple kit to put together. Fit was really good. Like I said, it is mixed up with some older parts and some newer parts mixed together, but everything fit really well. Very nice kit. It's something that you can assemble in 6-7 hours and get right to painting. So, as always, I want to thank you for watching, and please stay tuned because we have more models coming.